people fear ghosts, demons, shadows, but very few understand the real nightmare. The idea that someone, a real human being, might be living inches from you without you ever knowing. This story is one of the most disturbing true horror events ever documented in the United States. In 1994, a 31-year-old man named Brian Andrews moved into a quiet one-bedroom apartment in Tacoma, Washington. He wasn't lonely, just private. He liked the silence. He liked knowing he controlled his own space. Every day felt the same. Wake up, work long hours at the warehouse, grab takeout on the way home, eat, watch TV, sleep. Nothing strange, nothing unusual, until the nights stopped being quiet. It started slowly. A cabinet slightly open when Brian was sure he had closed it. A spoon on the counter he didn't remember using. The TV volume changing on its own. Food missing. Brian blamed it on stress. But then, one night around 3:21 a.m., he woke to a sound he could not explain. Not pipes, not the fridge, not the wind. Footsteps, soft, slow, bare feet walking across the living room floor. Brian sat up in bed, heart pounding. The hallway was dark, silent. He checked the apartment, every room, every corner. Nothing. But the next morning, one more thing was missing. Half the leftovers he had in the fridge. Over the next week, things escalated. Toiletries moved, light switches flipped, a chair slightly angled toward his bedroom door. One night, he clearly heard breathing behind his closed bathroom door. But when he opened it, the room was empty. Brian didn't believe in the supernatural, but even he began to think something was wrong, very wrong. So he bought a cheap security camera, hid it behind a stack of cereal boxes, and aimed it directly at the kitchen, just to be sure, just to prove to himself that nothing was happening. He let the camera record while he slept. The next day, he pressed play. At 1:44 a.m., a cabinet door above the fridge began to open from the inside. A woman, thin, pale, dirty hair hanging to her shoulders, crawled out in slow, silent motions, as if she had been living in a narrow space for months. She moved with unnatural patience. Her feet made no sound. She opened the fridge, picked at Brian's leftovers, drank directly from the milk bottle, then wandered to the living room. She paused and turned her head toward Brian's bedroom. She walked closer, stopped at his door, and just stood there, watching him for minutes, not blinking, not moving. Then she walked back, crawled into the cabinet, pulled the door shut from the inside, and disappeared. Brian stared at the screen, frozen in terror. This wasn't a ghost. This wasn't a prank. Someone, a real person, was living inside his apartment. Police arrived within the hour. When they opened the cabinet, they found more than a hiding spot. Behind it was a dark opening, a forgotten crawl space that ran through the walls and connected to a tiny storage area above the apartment. Inside that space, a thin mattress, piles of food scraps, water bottles, clothes, a small bag, and a bucket for a toilet. She had been there for at least 2 months, watching Brian, moving only when he slept, living above him, beside him, behind him. They later discovered she had entered the apartment through a window months before and simply never left. The woman was mentally unstable and believed the apartment was hers. But the most chilling detail came from the officers. This wasn't rare. They had found similar cases in other apartments across the city. People secretly living in attics, behind walls, inside crawl spaces, slipping out only when the owners slept. Brian moved out the next day and never returned. But even years later, he said that the worst part wasn't the footage, or the food disappearing, or the thought of someone watching him sleep. It was knowing that for 2 whole months, he had never been alone. Not even once. Some places don't need ghosts to be terrifying. Sometimes the real horror is the person hiding just a few inches away behind the wall. If you want more real horror stories like this, subscribe to ShadowPulse. Some shadows don't follow you, they live with you.